Hello, welcome to a parallel project training podcast on diversity and inclusion. This is linked to the APM PMQ syllabus that is in use for all exams after September 2024. My name's Ruth Phillips and I'm here with two of my colleagues, both parallel senior trainers. I've got Lisa Regan and I've got Carmen Campos. Hello and welcome to the podcast, both of you.
Hello.
Hi Ruth. Hi Carmen.
We're pinning all of our podcasts to the APM syllabus, and this podcast is about diversity and inclusion. Let's have a look at the learning objective. The APM would like us to understand diversity and inclusion as the ability to build and maintain an inclusive environment that embraces a diverse culture. That's a good definition of what APM sees as diversity and inclusion. We've got a number of learning objectives that we're going to cover. But first of all, let's take things back to the beginning and say, what is diversity in the workplace? How does that affect us on projects? Lisa, do you want to talk to us about that?
Yeah, I don't mind starting. Diversity and inclusion for me, it's about making sure that you recognise what people's differences are, that you value those differences and you find a way through them to come up with an effective way of working. I'm sure we'll move on to talk about how this impacts on project teams, but the differences we're talking about, these what they call protected characteristics, the things like someone's marriage status, whether they're in a civil partnership or not, the pregnancy or maternity status, the race, the religion or the belief, the sexual orientation, their age, if they've got any kind of disability. They're all protected characteristics under the Equality Act 2010, and that gives legal protection for anybody who shows those characteristics.
Yeah, and in the UK, certainly with the Equality Act, if we don't respect these characteristics and treat people equally and put in place adjustments where necessary, that's actually an offence under that act. So it's really important for project managers and project teams that we recognise this.
Yeah, because project teams can be based in the same office. Well, these days they can be around the world, different ages, from new graduates to really experienced people from all different kinds of backgrounds, depending on the industry that they're in.
How can encouraging that diversity, encouraging that inclusion benefit our project? Carmen, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So at the end of the day, the team members are individuals. So if the leaders, project managers, and also organizations don't recognize, don't celebrate those differences, the people will not feel they're in a safe environment where they could excel and they could contribute positively. So it's very important to foster that working culture where the differences are celebrated, barriers are removed from people, and everyone has a fair chance to not only be themselves, but also to grow at their full potential.
When people feel themselves, they feel that they can contribute more and performance is increased. Taking real opportunities to increase the diversity in your project team really encourages different ideas. There's another podcast that Lisa and I have recorded recently about conflict and the positive nature of conflict, getting people to challenge ideas, to share ideas, and to really welcome differences of thought can absolutely transform the creativity and the innovation on your project team.
Yeah, fully agree.
Have either of you got any good examples of how you've managed to foster a working culture that brings in that diversity and inclusion?
I think we're both really lucky these days that this is something really profound and is something that everyone talks very openly about it. It's very unusual to find organizations where they don't have a diversity and inclusion culture and policies. Just a simple example, if someone book a meeting, for example, at 6 o'clock, would that be fair for someone who maybe have children and need to pick them from a school? That person is probably not going to be able to do themselves because that could be a disadvantage. Or if someone has a religious celebration and they need to attend that. So the project manager need to be aware and try to provide a good working environment where everyone could also fulfill their values and their backgrounds and their beliefs and the personal situation and still do really well on the project.
Yeah, it's all about enabling people to reach their full potential, isn't it, Lisa?
Yeah, absolutely. What I was just thinking of was an example from the training courses that I run. If anyone tells me I've actually got to go and pick the children up from the school run in the afternoon, I can record the session so they can come back at a later date and look at the bit that they weren't able to see. Like Carmen said, we're constantly making adoptions and kind of supporting all kinds of different needs and all kinds of different requirements.
Yeah, some nice examples there. The third learning outcome within the syllabus deals with conscious and unconscious bias. This is a really interesting topic because this is what affects our actions, affects our abilities to foster that diversity within our project environment. So, Lisa, tell me what bias is all about, conscious bias, unconscious bias. What's the difference?
Conscious bias for me is a deliberate thought. It's an attitude that you've got. Whereas unconscious it can be involuntary. Sometimes you don't even realise that you're thinking that way or you're reacting that way in a situation. I've had a certain upbringing. Ruth, you'll have had a different upbringing. Carmen's had a different upbringing. We will have different biases that we've gained over our school life, our working life, our professional situations. They all form, unfortunately, the biases that you have towards people.
That's an important point, actually, that this isn't necessarily a thing that you can escape. We are all biased. We're all biased against people who are different from us in whatever way it may be. And as you say, often a lot of this is ingrained in our values, in our beliefs, and then it results in our behaviours.
Absolutely.
Carmen, where you really like the psychological models. Tell us a little bit about how bias actually can manifest itself in different circumstances.
I love the psychology behind it. I don't escape. As Lisa said, we're all biased. But I think it's very important, especially project managers, leaders, to be aware of them, just to make sure that we are not biased when we choose team members or create teams or in decision making, because unfortunately this bias, if we are not aware, could affect our actions and our understanding. Have you heard the expression of thin slicing, for example?
No, tell me about thin slicing.
The way our brains works is that sometimes we unconsciously find patterns on situations or short moments just based on a thin slice of an experience. This is not a psychology podcast, but this is about how sometimes our minds could make some judgment based on very limited information. A classic example is a job interview. People sometimes says when someone interviews someone for a job, you could probably make a decision in the first 1 minute, maybe even in the introduction. It's one form of bias. Sometimes you may be biased because of a positive impression that someone could create on you. It's called the halo effect. It could be the other way around. It could be you perceive someone negatively and you judge maybe not justifiably that person because you have a cognitive bias on maybe a particular, political view or disagreement. So just something of that affects the way you judge that person. And in the project context, it's the same. You could make decisions just based on a small slice of information. You could have a positive or negative effect, and some person may not be welcome their ideas, their thoughts. They may not feel safe participating in a meeting. So although we cannot escape from the bias, we need to be more aware because we need to realize that we need to empower a team that is going to be diverse. And we always said a diverse team is a strong team.
Absolutely. A lot of organisations are trying to make sure that these biases don't creep into job interviews, and particularly people that have got neurodiversity, that they conduct the job interview in a slightly different way. So, for example, providing candidates with the questions that are going to be asked up front so that they don't appear so nervous, because somebody can have that thin slicing that you talked about, that they make that snap judgment in 15 seconds. Oh, they're really nervous. They don't know what they're talking about. And that actually might just be a perception, a particular bias that person has, and actually allowing that candidate to have the best possible chance of fulfilling their potential.
It can even come down to things like not putting your date of birth on your CV and things like that, can't it? Yeah. Things that I'd never taken into account, and I thought, why does it matter? But it shouldn't matter. That's the point. Yeah.
It shouldn't matter, but people do make those judgments. And sometimes unconsciously, which is more difficult to address. Yeah. We've got another kind of psychological phenomenon called groupthink, haven't we? Lisa, how does groupthink affect a project negatively?
So groupthink is this phenomenon where you're looking for consensus, and it affects a project because sometimes those quieter people on a project won't feel able to speak up, or they'll think, oh, everybody else thinks this. I think that as well. They don't feel able to challenge, and they think, even though I believe this, everybody else is saying it's something different. It's the weight of the pressure of the group, isn't it, in that way? And that can happen in a project. Everyone else is saying we should be doing it this way. I'm saying, hang on a minute. I had an example just the other day of a project manager saying something had gone wrong and he was determined to get to the bottom of it. But everybody else in the team was saying, no, it's fine. We've dealt with it. We've carried on. And he was saying, no, actually, please let's dig down, solve the problem, so it doesn't happen again. So that's an example of someone trying to push against that groupthink.
To challenge that. That's why we can see the huge danger for projects in that. So there's two things that we need to address. First of all, we need to make sure that we have got a diverse project team, so that we've got that diversity of thought, we've got that constructive challenge, we've got that pushback of, hang on a second, have we thought about everything? And also, we need to make sure that the environment that we're working in is such that people feel comfortable of raising their concerns if they are going in a different direction from the rest of the group. Those are two quite different issues, but they all come under this topic. We've got to make sure that our workplace, our project environment is really inclusive, and that people feel that they're able to be themselves within that. And that we also encourage diversity, so that we're not all thinking in a certain direction, that we get that performance boost from having different perspectives on what we're doing.
And I think that's really the key, isn't it? If you have a diverse team and you also have a working culture and a working environment that embraces that, you can overcome groupthink, because people, A, will have completely different ideas, and B, they will feel very comfortable to express them and being challenged in a respectful way, because ultimately it's about treating people with the respect they deserve.
Absolutely. We've got so many things nowadays, particularly through technology, that enables us to have much greater diversity in our project teams than we've ever had before. I mean, simply the fact that we're able to hold meetings with people all over the world in all sorts of different times, actually see them face to face. It is something that we need to take advantage of, and to really find the benefits within our project environment of that diversity. Okay, fantastic. So we've looked at the syllabus item about understanding diversity and inclusion, knowledge of the different characteristics that we're talking about here when we're dealing with diversity. What are those protected characteristics? We've looked at the importance of incorporating diversity and diverse thinking into our project team. And then some of the biases that we might naturally have, or more conscious biases, and how to make sure that we are treating people fairly and adapting the way that we work, so that we can make sure that everybody can contribute to the project. That's been really interesting. Thank you very much to Lisa and to Carmen to talking to me about diversity and inclusion. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.